Well, thank you. I think you almost read my entire resume, and that helps because Malfoy is here. Just a few corrections there, though. I have worked with Disney, I've worked with Star, and I started my career in advertising, which is where I had the privilege of working for all those brands, because otherwise I'll sound like someone who changes jobs every 1 year. But no, in my 15 years of experience, I've worked for 3 brands, Contract, Star, and Disney. And I'm currently on a sabbatical, which I'll also talk about during my presentation. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That's how we call our audience, or used to call our audience at Disney, because I don't work there anymore. And I think really, since a question was asked, which is, do you have to be an Iron Lady to be successful? I have to give you an answer, and my answer is maybe. Simply because I don't have a clear view on whether it needs to be a yes or a no. I think we need to work with the word maybe. And you know, if you go back in time, really some of the imagery that the words Iron Lady bring up are, you know, we've spoken about Margaret Thatcher, we've spoken about Indira Gandhi, Kiran Bedi, and these are really women who, I think you have to go back in time to realize that at some point men and women never had equal rights. We do now. And I think these women had to work that much harder, therefore, to create an image for themselves. And for some reason, they decided that they had to behave more like men, dress like men, you know, sort of sometimes use their power in a way where they often were disliked more than liked. And I think we live in a world today now where men and women have equal rights. I mean, there's so many women sitting in the room here. So yes, there was a time for the word Iron Lady, but I don't think we live in an era right now where we need to use that word. But I still think there are some merits or traits from these words that we need to sort of continue using. I think our real problem today still continues to be that there are very few women on top. You look at any of the statistics, you look at the Fortune 500 companies, you look at across industries, very few women are really making it to the top. And I think that's changing, and that will continue to change. But really what I wanted to focus on today was some of the few qualities that women need to focusing on that will sort of get more and more women at the top. And I think some of these qualities also help the men. I think we've done enough male bashing for the day. And I think, you know, you guys also need to get something out of this. So really, if you look at, I know it's a long list, but this was a research done in 2011 by Zengman and Folkman. And really it looks at competencies that leaders need to make it into the world. And whether you look at men and women, this was a research done, I think, about 3,000 men and women. And if you looked at the 16 competencies that are required for a great leader, the women were on par, in fact higher, on most of these competencies, particularly the ones that were about taking initiative and driving for results. I think the only sort of competency where they didn't do as well as the men was developing a strategic perspective. And I think one of the reasons for that really was, since there weren't enough women in the top, that was one of the reasons why that came up. If they took CEOs, men and women, in fact the women again scored on par, if not higher. So I think you know, we've got to stop stereotyping women into a particular category. I don't think we need to be put into any category, whether it's Iron Lady or any other sort of term that we use. And I think, you know, I go back to Iron Man. It's now a Disney character. And really, I mean, you know, we don't talk about men as Iron Men. I mean, that's the only, we only talk of them in comics. But given that we still need to call women something, and, you know, just sort of taking off from what Lata was talking about earlier, I want to rephrase it slightly to call it women of iron, but I think I'm going to call that women of steel now, because you have men of steel and you have women of steel, so that just puts all of us on par, and we don't need to use 2 different metals to talk about each other. And I think what I'm just going to very quickly do is focus first on my first word, which is women, to say there are some advantages that we have as women. I don't think we use them very well, and how can we sort of go out there and make better use of them? The first one really is women have an advantage, and we don't use that as much as we need to. I think given the way we are, we're a lot more participatory, we're democratic, we're sensitive, and these are really, I mean, you've heard these things, you've heard about teamwork, you've heard about creativity. These are things that you need to have to make successful organizations or to be successful leaders. So I think about what your advantage is as a woman and start using it, start applying it. These are skills that all management companies really need today. Flaunt your skills. I think, another way to put it really was a very interesting, I don't know how many of you have seen it. It was a TED talk by a lady called Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CFO of Facebook. And she said, the one thing that she said to women was, learn to sit at the table. I mean, even if I look at this room right now, most of the women are sitting at the back. And this was an observation that actually I sort of discussed with somebody from your group. And I think it's important that women start sitting at the table. Don't be shy. You guys have the same set of skills, the same strengths that men have, and there's no reason to be shy about it. I think one of the best things that I learned at Star from one of my bosses, and we spoke about any learnings for me, and he said, Mobina, you're great at marketing your brand, but you're not that great at marketing yourself. And that's something that I've thought about, and I try doing a better job of it. But I think you really need to learn to sit at the table, flaunt your skills, flaunt your strengths, and the men I think do it all the time, and I think the men do it simply because unfortunately, they've since over the years they've had the task of proposing to women, asking them to marry them, and if you have to do that, then you've got to start flaunting your strengths. I think we live in an age now where a woman can walk up to a man and say, hey, would you like to go out with me? So you better start flaunting your strengths and flaunting your skills if that's the age you live in. This might be a bit provocative, but it's meant to be provocative, which is and it goes back to realizing what your female advantage is. By saying flaunt your sexuality, I don't mean go and sleep around. It's not going to get you anywhere. It might get you to the top, but that's sort of short-lived. So yeah, I mean, when I say flaunt your sexuality, there are things about women. We are charming. We spoke about dress code. We don't have to dress like the men. Dress in what you think is appropriate, whether business or casual. I've had the fortune of working for companies where we didn't really have a dress code, so we could walk into office in jeans or a sari or a skirt or whatever we wanted to wear. But think about it. I think we've got a little edge there again over men, and we should use it. Another thing that came up in the Sheryl Sandberg TED Talk, which was, she made this interesting point about don't leave till you've left, and we've spoken about balance and women having many roles and stuff like that. But I think the other thing that we do as women is we plan way much in advance. And she gave this interesting example of how this woman was actually thinking about having babies when she didn't even have a boyfriend. So the thing is that don't leave your job or don't leave your organization till you actually decide to leave to become a mother or a wife or any other role that you decide to play. Because unless you're committed, you're not going to get to the top. So I think you have to start focusing on where you want to get. If your focus is that you want to get to the top, you want to be successful, then don't start making all these other plans until it's actually time to deliver them or to work on them. And yeah, the other thing that she also said is let men do the laundry. I mean, again, we've spoken about balance, but I think a lot of us have, unless you're a superhuman, it's very difficult for a woman to be, great at her work, great with her kids, great in the kitchen, great at everything else. So unless the men are actually going to take responsibility and just not end up watching television or anything else that they continue doing, I think women need to command or demand, whatever the word you want to use, start talking to your spouses or your partners and get them to do more work, very simply. Because unless they're going to do that, like I said, unless you're a superhuman, which most of us are not, it's going to be very difficult for women to get to the top. And then eventually, the reason why you give up your job is because there's so much more to do at home. And I think men today have, you hear of enough house husbands, and I think that will continue. But I think the women need to convince the men to do more work rather than ending up doing their own work. Again, I don't know a lot of this doesn't really work for the men in the room, so I think the next slide is for both of them. These are words you've heard. I'm sure everybody who comes to talk to you about them, keeps talking about them, but I think it's important that you repeat them. We all need to have passion. Unless you have passion, you're not going to succeed. Intelligence, knowledge, whatever else you want to call it. Strong-willed, which is, it comes from the word iron, so whether it's strong-willed in terms of ethics, in terms of your commitment to work, hard work, pretty much everything else that word can take care of. I'd like to change that word, humility, to simplicity. I think you need to be simple in your thinking. A lot of times when we do when we sort of go through courses like this, we end up using a lot of jargon that we don't need to use. So keep it simple, be simple. Being arrogant is not going to get you anywhere. And again, have a plan B for life. I think all of us have a 50-year working career. If you sort of look at your life, if you start working at 20, 21, and you're going to continue working till you're 70, you can't be doing the same thing for 50 years of your life. So while you're in your current job, think of what your plan B is. Your plan B usually is your passion or a hobby. And then as you sort of grow up in life and you've achieved whatever you want from your plan A, usually it's your plan B that becomes your plan A. In my case, I took a sabbatical. I thought about what I wanted to do. I went to London for 6 months and studied art history and art business. I'm currently working on an art project, which is the public art space. I don't know whether I'll make that a full-time career or whether I'll go back to a corporate role, but I think it's very sort of important that all of you have a plan B and let it be a passion that you currently have and continue to follow. And I think since we all need an ending, usually you say God is in the details, but I'd like to say, because we're talking about women today, that God, the goddess is in the details. So continue to strive for excellence and for growth. And I think there was something else that I wanted to say on this, but I seem to forget because of lack of time. But yeah, I also believe in divine intervention. There is something up there that makes us who we are. There's a bit of luck required in everything that we do. So I think that was the other thing that I wanted to say. Thank you.